Proverbs chapter 25. Proverbs chapter 25. Proverbs chapter 25. Now it says in my Bible here, it says, these are also Proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, copied out, which means that Hezekiah went and gathered these together. I think it's here through 29. I think the lesson writer said 29 verse 27, 25 verse 1, that these are collection. Yeah, we're going. We're going good. Yeah, it's there. So a collection. Remember, Hezekiah lived, of course, after this, right? Solomon is what? The first, second, or third king of Israel. Number 3, right? Saul, David, and then Solomon. Then it's split into 2 nations. Now Hezekiah was the king of the southern kingdom. He is that southern kingdom dynasty many years later, and he just compiles a bunch of the Proverbs together. And of course, I remember in the lesson writer, we're talking about how many that he actually wrote. Let's see, what is it? 1 Kings 4:32. He spoke 3,000 Proverbs. 1 Kings 4:32. Let's go there right quick. 1 Kings 4. Always good to look at them. The rain is beating down. So King Solomon was king over all Israel. Verse 4. Excuse me. The verse number. Which one is it? Verse 32. 32. Yeah, speaking of the greatness of Solomon, he spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. 3,000 proverbs. So that was a lot that he spoke, and he was a wise man. Had so many, of course. So let's begin. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings to search out a matter. God conceals. We know there are many mysteries of God. There are things that we do not understand, and there are many things in the Bible that have been revealed later on, right? We know the mystery of iniquity is one that comes up later on. Well, he'll be revealed. We know the mystery of the church. We know that God has hidden these things, but he's revealed them unto us. But it's the man's privilege. The glory of God is concealed, but the honor of kings to search out a matter. Men search out the things of God. They look for the things of God. It's our honor, it's our privilege to search for what God has. It's our honor to search out a matter. The heaven for height and the earth for depth, and the heart of the king is unsearchable. Now, this is speaking about kings and their honor. It says, the heaven for height and the earth for depth, and the heart of the king is height, their depth unsearchable. You take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come forth a vessel for a finer. Take away a wicked from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. Just as you have to, for silver to be very pure, you got to take away the dross. When you take away the impurities, you got pure silver. You got something that's very precious. Well, you take away the wicked from before a king, and his throne is going to be established in righteousness. In other words, to take away the wicked, take away that which takes away from it, right? If you want to look better, you take away what's bad, correct? They were the blemishes. And that's pretty much what he's pointing here. We know that the heart of the king is unsearchable, but it says here, take away a wicked man from before the king, and it'll be established in righteousness. In other words, it takes down the individual. When you have people that are going to be detrimental, you might keep people around because you feel sorry for them. Now realizing they're a drag upon you. They'll take away from you. The king needs to be surrounded by people, good counselors, wise men. But you got a wicked man there. It's just going to destroy it. It takes away. Any comments, questions? Does that make sense?
Also a godly man too.
Mm-hmm. But he won't take away. He'll add. He'll be additive. Okay. He won't subtract. A godly man will add to what the king has. You know, we talked about how it says about the king having good counselors, surrounding himself with good people that gives him good advice, right? Number 6, put not forth thyself in the presence of the king, and stand not in the place of great men. And I like the other version that says, don't exalt yourself in the presence of the king. In other words, As Clint Eastwood said, a man's got to know his limitations. You've got to know your limitations. You need to know who you are. Don't exalt yourself in front of the king. Don't promote yourself. For better is it is that it be said unto thee, come up hither, that thou shouldest be put lower in the presence of the prince whom thine eyes have seen. It's better for you to say, don't exalt yourself in front of the king. Don't brag on yourself how much you are. Stop bragging about yourself. Don't make yourself look good in the eyes of those that are above you unless they put you down where you ought to be. It's easy for us to say not to humble yourself. I'm reminded of years ago, it was a commonplace. I was a young preacher. I was 25 years old, and I would go to churches, and we would sit out there, and these old preachers would come up, and it was commonplace. You never would sit in the pulpit with the preachers. But I learned from watching the old preachers, you don't come up there unless they invite you to come up. If they invite you to come up, you're glad to take a chair, or you're glad to sit right here, wherever you want me, brother. Humility on part of they taught you that be humble. Always know your place. Don't be above them. Because it's easier for people to tell you to come up than it is to put you down. And that's in pretty much everything in your life. Don't brag on yourself when you're not a prince. Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof, when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame. Going to court with your neighbor. Now, of course, we know this is 1 Corinthians chapter 6. I think it is. Dare any of you. You don't go to court with someone else. He says, don't go hastily to court, for what will you do in the end when your neighbor puts you to shame? So what should I do? So try it all possible to avoid a court case. In logic, try not to go to court. Try not to go to court, because you don't know what's going to happen there. You just never know. So he says, debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another. Don't go hastily. Debate your case, and do not disclose a secret to another. Don't tell anybody else about it. But try to rectify it with him before you go to court. And you do it in private. It gets out of hand quickly. This is what his point is. In Proverbs chapter 25 and verse number 9, debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another. Don't go hastily to court. Go not forth hastily to strive. There are people that are so quick to sue you. And we see that on the TV, and you can see that there. But of course, right now, we're living in a time where there is no shame, by the way. Most people we live in an era that's terrible. By the way, do you know what shame is? Yeah. Everybody knows what shame is. What happens when you don't have shame? You do a lot of things you shouldn't do. When you've got shame, like going to court, I don't want to get a bad name. It's like when I mentioned something about a young girl being pregnant, and I got slapped. Don't talk about that. That's somebody's family. You don't even mention that. It was a shame for a family. But nowadays, those things are actually glorified. But it says here, just debate it with yourself, with him, and you'll be better off, lest he who heareth it put thee to shame, and thy infamy turn not away, and your reputation be ruined. Your infamy, in other words, being famous, will go away. Don't tell anybody. This is one of those things I tell people I learned many years ago. Sins that are public, everybody, you confess them publicly. But if it's private, nobody else, look, don't go telling everybody. You keep things quiet. And he points it out. He says, look, if you got a problem with a brother or sister, you talk to them by yourself. And don't tell everybody else you're talking to them. You debate this, you get, hey, look, can we settle this out of court? And I don't need to tell him, nobody else needs to know our business, what we've talked about. We've settled it, right? There's an episode of Andy Griffith. Remember when Barney brings up an old case from years ago? They settled it it wasn't in the books, and Barney found it. And then, of course, Floyd and the other guy, they got mad and hit each other, and everybody's hitting each other. Just let it go. We got together, we just settled it ourselves. Well, that's what we need to do now again. But it's again that idea, lest he that hear that put thee to shame. Don't let people know what's going on. They'll use it against you. Have you ever noticed that people will tell you, hey, I'm on your side, and as soon as they find out, they'll be the first ones to tell everybody, they're going to use it against you. It's something they got over on you. And that's what he means by this. avoiding strife, avoiding going to court. Try to settle it with your neighbor. Well, he ain't going to get over on me. That's the attitude. That pridefulness will get you in trouble. Well, there was an old saying we said, better to swallow pride than blood. You know. Let's move on. Number 11. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver. In the pictures of silver, or the settings of silver. Apples of gold and settings of silver, that's pretty valuable, isn't it? As an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. I like that. King James is sometimes hard to understand in Proverbs, but that part I can get. Listen to this, how he says it. So is a wise reprover, person who rebukes you or corrects you, in the ear. It says, upon an obedient ear. A wise reprover upon an obedient ear. In other words, somebody who's willing to listen and say, hey, thank you, I didn't know that, you know. I did not know that, you know. Sometimes you don't want people to tell you something, and you get upset with them as opposed to listening to them. He's just trying to help you, and you're mad about it because he's telling you something you don't want to hear, but he's reproving you. But an obedient ear. Anybody got an NIV can read that? Obedient ear. Verse number 12. What does it say? A wise reprover?
He said, listen.
It said a wise man's rebuke.
All right. Of course, that's taking how do you accept a wise man telling you? But it says, man, it's like apples of gold and fines and silver. As the cold of snow in the time of harvest, so is a faithful messenger to them that send him, for he refresheth the souls of his master. Now, apparently messengers were very important back there in those days. When later they would call them heralds, somebody who would take and herald the message to someone else. But he says a faithful messenger is like the cold of snow in the harvest. What that means is, if you ever know what that means, it's like on a hot day. Have any of you ever had to serve in a field on a hot day and work all day in a hot field? You ever had that? Do you remember how refreshing it was when a rain shower would come up and cool you off? That's the only thing I can remember, because you couldn't really walk to the house and walk into a cool house because it didn't have a cool house. Wouldn't have air conditioning. But the coldest, like the coldest snow. If you'd have had an air conditioner like the coldest snow to walk inside, how refreshing would that have been? Well, that's exactly what he means here. He says it's like the coldest snow in the harvest when it's hot. That's what a faithful messenger is to them that send him. It refresheth the soul of his master. Now, I have something, Brother Andre, I was throwing something comparable to that. When you was that hot and that bothered, we did have a family that stayed on the farm that had an old pump. And boy, when it's so hot, you go there and just pump it that cold water, stick your head under it. Remember that one? That will cool you off.
We had one with an overflow.
Did you?
All the time.
Wow.
Water all the time.
And it would, and you're hot and right there. It was right next to the field where Miss Isabel McLaurin stayed, and it was right when the fields would get by. We get close to her house, just go in there and just pump that water, and it'd be so refreshing. A faithful messenger is like that, refreshing to your soul. Somebody you can trust to take a message for you, right? Now we have men in the Bible that were trustworthy, men that were honorable. Of course, Nehemiah comes to mind above all of them. That it was faithful messenger. Or remember, what was I can't. His name started with an S. I can't remember his name. It was with David, and the counsel of Ahithophel he overthrew. He was such a faithful man to David. David, whatever you need, I've got your back. Remember the 600 men that followed him? How faithful they were to him. Faithful messengers, people that's still so refreshing to them. Whoso boasteth himself of a false gift is like clouds and wind without rain. Who falsely boasts of himself of a false gift. In other words, they boast about giving when they haven't given, or they boast about giving when they really don't give that much. They talk about themselves in the same light as you, like they're just as good as you are. I do such great works, and I'm just as good as everybody else. And they boast on it, and they're not. You know, somebody said about a preacher, not knowing if it's a real preacher or not, a so-called preacher. So we've had those happen, and I remember being with some men that I knew And they would just, I don't know, it was a group of, when they got together, loud and talking above. And it didn't take long to figure out they didn't know that much of the Bible. What they had was a great group of people following them, and they really didn't have much of the Word of God in them. But they would boast as if they were very wise. And people who boast about how good they are when they're really not that good. Now, the lesson writer I read used Ananias and Sapphira as people who gave a gift but really didn't give that much, right? They wanted to be like everyone else, but they don't give like that.
God keep them, nigga.
Yeah, they died. They died for their what they had done. You see, it's one of those boasting upon yourself when you're really not that good. You don't brag on yourself. What do you say? Hey, look, don't invite yourself up and talk to the king like you're somebody. You wait till they call you to come. As Esther would wait for the king before you take a step towards her. You wait until somebody tells you that. You don't need to tell everybody how good. Let them figure it out on their own. They'll know you're a Christian. You're doing your job. You're not trying to hide that. But you don't want to brag on what you know and how much you know. It'll come out. Sometimes that, you know what, they leave it alone. Then they come up and they'll say, brother, what about so-and-so and so-and-so? And you tell, oh, okay. Suddenly they know that you know. But giving gifts, false giving. He says, boast on himself of a false gift. Again, I think I've said this probably 10, 15 times at this church. The Sunday I was at a church, I was a visiting preacher that day, and they were taking up a collection for a building fund. And after they took it up, this guy said, preacher, he walks out and says, I got a check for $1,000. I'm not trying to boast, but you know how much I love this church. You're boasting. You don't even know any better. Walking down the aisle with a $1,000 check and holding it up, what are you giving? And it's just that kind of the falsely boasting. He was doing it for himself. But don't boast about things when you don't. But by long forbearing is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaketh the bone. He says, a long forbearance of a ruler is persuaded. Forbearance means self-control. You persuade someone else. Take heed to who you are. Watch how you approach people. And be patient with it. Don't be impatient. Long forbearing. And a gentle tongue, it breaks a bone. You can move people. You say, well, I don't want to do that. If you ever learn the art of how to talk to people, and it's right, you can actually manipulate them. How can you manipulate them? He says, the softness of a tongue. The soft tongue breaks a bone. It means a word spoken. He uses it here. A gentle words of a wise man or a woman can have a great impact over a long period of time. Our self-control and patience can persuade great men to our cause, even a ruler. Being patient, waiting, and being patient and saying, okay, here's what just don't get hasty. All this is about, of course, humility, understanding your position, being willing to wait upon it. You know? Let's go on. Hast thou found honey? Eat as much as is sufficient for thee, lest thou be filled therewith and vomited. Things that you love that are really good, don't indulge yourself. I seen some guys get sick one time. I was working at a place. For those of you who remember when drinks was 15 cents in a bottle, 12 ounces in South Carolina, 10 ounces here, right? Remember that? The bottlers couldn't sell the ones here. We had 12 ounces, 10 ounces here. And they had this big bottle that came out of 16 ounce. Wow. We cut Coke bottles. Why did you collect Coke bottles for? On the bottom. What was on the bottom? Nope. Every Coca-Cola bottle, on the glass bottle on the bottom of it, why'd you collect it? State. The name of a state was on the bottom. Remember the state name? You didn't collect those? Everybody had a state on it. Wow. Okay, well, I'm privileged then.
I've seen them.
But I remember the day when we were at this place we were working, and the boss man left. Well, guess what happened? We were working, there probably about 20 people in there. Well, a group of people found out that the guy who came to change the drink machine forgot to close it all the way. So they had all the drinks they wanted. Some of them were sick from drinking 4 or 5 of them. Because they indulged themselves. The point is, you can take a good thing and indulge yourself and make yourself vomit. He says about honey. Everybody loves honey, but you can eat too much of it. Just because you got something good, don't overindulge in it. Don't overdo it. Hast thou found honey? Eat as much as sufficient. For lest thou be filled therewith and vomit. It says, don't overdo it. It's the idea of things that you like, things that you love. Don't overdo it with them. You can have that in every aspect of your life. You can go overboard with it. Too much of a good thing can hurt you. Yes, it can. That's what he means by this. Just have that kind of self-control. It's the same thing he's been talking about in this chapter about this proverb, self-control and being patient, long-suffering, okay? Take away those things. Hey, just talk with your neighbor yourself. The word, listen to what they tell you. Be a faithful messenger. Be humble. Withdraw thy foot from thy neighbor's house, lest he be weary of thee and so hate thee. Don't go spend all your time at your neighbor. Everybody loves to visit one another. But you don't want to wear out your welcome, we say. You don't want to overdo it because they'll hate you after a while. Goodness, you know? Obviously, this has happened in some people's lives. Because it happens. People just, you can overdo it. Or, when they come, like, maybe y'all haven't had this year. And still don't get the hint they need to leave because the person, they're falling asleep. And the daddy's falling asleep. Mama's still talking to them like, I think they're ready to go to bed. But you wear out your welcome with people. He says, lest he be weary of thee and so hate thee. You don't want him to become weary of you. Just be moderation. Everything in moderation. A man that beareth false witness against his neighbor is a maul and a sword and a sharp arrow. That's not good. Man bears false witness against his neighbor. He's a lie. He's like a club, a sword. That's terrible. It's not what you want. He said it's like a man that bears false. Yeah, confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. This is where God tells you in your life you need faithful people. Surround yourself with faithful people. That's not the smartest man about the Bible. It's not the woman that knows the Bible the best. The woman that what she does know, she's faithful to it. Faithful people. When you stand before God in the book of Matthew, chapter 25, it says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. We are faithful servants. And servants sometimes over 10, he had the 5 and the 1. It doesn't matter what he puts you over, but you're good at what you do. I went to Harper's Ferry at the revival this past year. I was there a couple of months ago. And sure as day, I knew what was going to happen when I walk on the front porch. You know what I'm going to find? Brother Man. Brother Man's always there since way before I was there in 2000. He was the doorkeeper. That was his job. He said God called him to be that. And for all those years before 2000, still to the day, this old man is still there, and he holds the door and it welcomes everybody in. That's his job. That's what God called him to it. He's always there. And when you come to that church, you're going to meet him at the front door. Faithful in what he does. No, I'm not saying he's great, but what he does, he's faithful to it. And this is what he means by this. Don't put confidence in an unfaithful man. He's like a broken tooth or a foot out of joint. It's actually going to cause you harm. He that taketh away a garment in a cold weather, as vinegar upon nitre, so is he that singeth songs to a heavy heart. Like anyone who takes away a garment in cold weather, like vinegar on soda, right? You know what it does, don't you? Yeah, it fizzes up. No, maybe you didn't. We grew up on soda pops, right? We're making soda pops.
Yeah, ice cream.
Yeah. No. Soda pops. That's not ice cream. This is something different. That much water in the bottom of a glass. Maybe a little bit more. Put a teaspoon of sugar. Put that much vinegar in it. And you stir it. Not that much in the bottom. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. Stick it there and it foams up the whole thing. It's an acid and base mix. In other words, that causes trouble, right? That's what he's speaking about here. Like one who takes away the garment in cold weather. No. Is one who sings to a heavy heart. You know? In other words, you're trying to be married to something bad, and you're making things worse, is the point he's making here. He that taketh away the garment in cold and as a vinegar and mitre, so is he that singeth songs to an heavy heart. Right here it says, without sensitivity brings discomfort and irritation and agitation. In other words, you don't be loud and boisterous. You don't sing happy songs at a wake, right? You sing sad songs or songs that has a solemnness to them. You want to make sure it's reverent. If thine enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat, and if he get thirsty, give him water to drink. For thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward thee. Wow. Didn't we read that somewhere else? Everybody's read that in Romans chapter 12, verse 19, right? Right? Dear Lord, beloved, avenge not yourselves, neither give place on wrath, for it's written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if any hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. Here's where it comes from. Sorry. I ain't had that marked in my Bible.
Romans 12, 13.
Yeah, Romans 12 and 19, 20, and 21, I think it is. So 21 and 22. And the Lord shall reward thee. Even in the Old Testament here, Solomon points out, God will reward you for being good to your enemies. You know, there were some prophets. Was it Elisha or Elijah? It was Elisha, who took the prophets and he blinded them all and led them right in the middle of the camp. Instead of destroying them, he fed them and sent them away. And they never came again, these raiders that they'd hired to destroy them. I can't remember the story. But he was good to the enemy, and very kind to them, which he speaks of here, being kind to people.
It was 19.
19 here. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, neither give place unto wrath. Ready? North wind driveth away rain, so doth an angry countenance a backbiting tongue. Those who speak ill of others with a backbiting tongue will provoke angry countenance in others. Right? It's cause and effect. The north wind brings rain, and people that backbite it, they'll bring forth an angry countenance upon themselves. Common sense things. Okay, well, we go back to the women again.
That's a good one.
Proverbs 8, Solomon done this. It is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman and in a wide house. It is. I think it's trying to emphasize it. Oh, verily, that's right. Verily. That's emphasis, right? As cold waters to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. Cold water to a thirsty soul. Yeah, it's good. We spoke of that. Good news from a far country. Good news from a distant country. Good news, right? Everybody wants good news, right? I listen to the news and I play Fox News and CNN. One of the things CNN has done on the weekends, they always give you through the week 5 things you need to know. But on the weekends, they say 5 good things. It's always positive news. They give positivity. I'm not a big CNN fan, but I like to listen to get both sides. But I enjoy the fact that they give positive news on Saturdays. They'll give you some good things that are happening out there. It is. We don't see much of that. A righteous man falling down before the wicked is as troubled fountain and a corrupt spring. A righteous man, he stumbles and falters, that's bad. In the view of those who reject God and he falters, it causes more harm. It is not, he says, it's like a troubled fountain, a corrupted spring. In other words, drinking water from something that's murky that you know is not good.
Or like your water, did you know your septic tank, if it gets clogged up, your water tastes like eggs? Or it smells like it's got an egg smell to it?
If you have the corrupted, well, our water, what we have at our house, if you got there at our spigot and you turn it on and you just get some in a bucket, that's what it'll smell like.
So, I mean, that don't have nothing to do with this.
No. It's hydrogen sulfide, H2S. Hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs, and that's one of the gases that sometimes in the water. Ours is loaded with it, so we had to have a thing on our spigot. We had one with the salt, and it'll get rid of all the impurities, but you got to have the charcoal and the others to get rid of that smell for that hydrogen sulfide. And that was a local one on your spigot.
The first well that was opened out, it was saying, well, you put a far smelling or something. It was terrible. And he put a filter system on it. Then did away with that. They had another well put down.
Same place?
We had to go deeper.
That's what I'm going to have to do. But I got county water. When I got county water, I turned it on because of that reason. Because I mean, if you've ever had water like that, and you hear the people that I can't drink that county water, I can't believe they do that. Take my word for it. A little bit of chlorine, it's not going to kill you, but it sure does get rid of all the germs. It purifies it. But now, because it's not deep enough, you got to go really deep. The ground purifies the water as it goes through it. If you ever make that, you can actually take water and purify it. If you make the ground, how far it goes through it, it purifies the water because it's running through it. It doesn't sit. And the streams that run underground. But he says here, no. He said, but a man that becomes wicked, a righteous man, when he falls down, when he falters, he does something foolish, does something wrong. It's like that to him. Man, when you mess up like that, and David Guzik used the idea of Abraham in his second, when we went down to Gerar and Abimelech, and he said, Abimelech, you're a dead man. And then Abimelech reproves him. Why did you tell me that? You could have got me killed. Well, technically, she is my sister. It's like if you got rebuked by a sinner for doing something wrong that he shouldn't have done. It is not good to eat much honey, for men to search their own glory is not glory. Don't eat a lot of honey, as we said before, but also your glory. When you search out your own glory, seek one's own glory, boasting upon yourself, bragging on yourself about how great you are. It's not good to do that. Others are going to tell you that's different. But when you go to boasting on yourself, my prayers, my preaching, my singing, or I'm the best electrician, I'm the best farmer, I'm the best barber, I'm the best whatever, or how good you are. It's not good for a man to glory about themselves. Always telling people about what they've accomplished and what they've done. By the way, if you've been in church a lot, I used to hear people testify, and they would have a roundabout way of saying it, how much they've done for the Lord. It's been so hard, brothers. Y'all pray for me. The devil's been riding me. It was so hard, but I got out and I witnessed about 10 people this week. I tell you what, it was hard. I don't know what the devil's on me. Y'all pray for me. But I got it accomplished. God let up with it, and it's all about what they've done. But they use the ploy of saying, I'm in trouble, pray for me. But don't take your own glory. Verse 28, he that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. A city broken down with no walls, that's just going to be trampled under. There's no protection. You have absolutely nothing. He said, but a man that's got no rule over his own spirit, when you can't control yourself, self-control. That was the 1970s came up with self-control, Self-control. You may not know that, but there was a buzzword, much as Y2K came about. But self-control in the early 70s about many things in America. We need more self-control. But he says here clearly, if you can't rule your own spirit, you're going to have trouble because you have no protection. Comments, questions? All right, let's move on to chapter 26. As snow in summer and rain in the harvest, so honor is not fitting for a fool. Snow in the summer, that's not fitting. Rain in the harvest, well, that's not fitting. That's when it's growing. So honor is not seemingly for a fool. It's not. And sometimes we do honor people that surely don't need it. Now, I'm not going to try to sit here and talk politics, so let's go away from politics. But it's like honoring somebody that don't need that honor. So I'll tell you what I've done. And I'm not going to talk about Reedy Branch or those churches. I'm going to talk about another church I was at. Not Joel Osteen. I'm talking about where people come in and we got so-and-so superintendent of the schools is with us today. I want to know if you want to say a word to for us. Our senator's here today. Sir, you want to say a few words for us? You're in a church. You've been foolish about talking to a man that has no idea about the church. That has nothing to do with the church. And you talk on subjects you don't know.
We had a similar thing almost happen here, didn't it, Brother Andre?
I wasn't here.
You weren't here. I can't remember the timeline, but we had a man who started coming here a little bit, and he brings a lady in that's going to give us some money. But it was going to end up being a big show or a big to do.
Wow.
So that she gets up to speak, but we got to her before that happened. So it didn't happen.
Yeah. Is there honor is not seemingly for a fool. You don't give honor to people that are like that. You don't give honor to those kind of people. That's kind of foolish to do that, isn't it? Thank God you did that.
Or to celebrate their birthday.
Yeah.
That's just the recent one I had to go through it. My boss wanted me to, go to his birthday party, but he treats you like a dog.
Okay.
Why in the world am I gonna go to your party? I hope you don't see this part.
But again, the point is, people who are fools, or what it means, they don't honor God.
That's right.
The Proverbs said, "The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God." They don't know God. They don't honor God. But to give honor to people like that at a church, people that aren't even saved, they're not even Christians, but you give honor to them at a church for what? Well, because they're so and so. That's like the president coming. No, it doesn't matter. Giving honor to some that has nothing to do with it. Be careful. As a bird by wandering, as a swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. I'm going to read that from the other one. Like the fleeting sparrow and the flying swallow, so a curse without a cause shall not alight. It's not correct. You got a curse without a proper cause. It's not going to be honored. In other words, you don't have a cause. You get angry, just doing things without any self-control, being upset, like a fleeting sparrow, like a flying swallow. A curse without a cause is not a light. It's not correct. It says here, there must be a cause before God for it to have any power. In other words, you just don't get angry. You don't get upset. You better have a cause behind it. A whip for a horse, a bridle for the ass or donkey, and a rod for the fool's back. Wow. In other words, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same kind of thing. Dealing with fools, people like that, a rod for a man's back. In other words, punishment should come. Now, we live in a time where we don't do that. We don't punish criminals. You take them off the street and make them stay in a place that they don't want to stay. That's pretty much all that happens. Can I say that again? There's no lack of food and water. No lack of free space to roam. Good shoes, good clothing. Only thing you can take away from them is their freedom to go where they want to go. And that usually doesn't bother people that are homeless and don't care. I need to go. Why? Well, it's getting cold weather. I got to do something to get in jail. It's cold. I hate to say it, but I've had men actually tell me that. What do you mean you're going to prison? I told him I ain't staying in this jail cell. Give me prison. And he did. Why would you do that? Because in jail cell, you don't have no wall. There's the walls. You don't see no daylight. You go to prison. Hey, man, I got 6 months. I'm out there on the yard, man. We got libraries. We got exercise equipment. We got everything. I said, I didn't know that. Well, anyway, that's kind of what he told me. That was years ago.
Free health.
Yeah, free health care. Yeah, I need my heart bypass. Let me get in the jail so I can get free heart bypass. But a whip for a horse, a bridle for the ass or donkey, and a rod for the fool's back. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. Don't answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. No. Don't respond. In other words, he says something foolish, let it go. You know, this is one of the things the ploys they use against us. They'll say something you need to push your button, knowing you're going to get angry about there, and you're going to try to prove a point. No, God is love. Listen, you're not a Christian. Yes, I am. I was saved at so-and-so. I was it, and you're trying to prove yourself a Christian, and it doesn't matter to them. They don't care about that. You know, God says you love everybody, and you know where they're coming from. And let it go. Because you'll never win that argument. You're never going to win that argument. Now, if they say they're saved, sometimes you can. But a fool, no. Don't answer him according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. Now, answer the fool in his own folly. Answer him with his own folly, so he doesn't become wise in his own eyes. In other words, dealing with a fool, a person who doesn't believe in God, is unique. Don't let them drag you under, but know how to cut them down and make sure they're not wise in their own eyes. When they try to challenge you, don't respond to them telling you about what you are, what God is. No. But when they try to bring certain things about boasting about themselves, remind them, you're not nothing. Yeah, you ain't saved. You're never going to be anything. Yeah, you born again? Well, no, but I'm as good as you are. Well, you're going to hell if you ain't saved. Has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with you. You put them in their place saying, this is what it's about. It's not about me and you. This is about you and God. Wise words spoken in the proper time. And it has a lot to do with how you approach people. Again, as I said Sunday, the Roman road, the ABCs of salvation, how to share your salvation experience, those are all well and good, but you can't do the cookie cutter type of way to approach people. Every person you meet is going to be different, but every person in the church, every Christian is different. And your approach, how you witness to people. I can't tell you how to do it. I can give you the foundation, and God will lead you how to talk to these people. And you know how when you got a fool that's trying to push your buttons, don't let them do that to you. Giving more wisdom to those who do not want it just makes them more ammunition. They'll keep going after it. But when they try to make themselves look at, hey, you say I don't love people. Well, what's love? Well, love is so. Now, where'd you get that definition from? Everybody knows it. Well, I don't know that. So tell me, where'd you get it from? Oh, everybody. Well, who is everybody? Who'd you talk to? Pin them down on it, and you just make them follow. Okay. Well, God is good. God is good. Well, is there such a thing as evil? Is there such a thing as good? Remember the argument Ravi Zacharias used to use? He said there's no God. Is there evil? Well, yeah. Well, if there's evil, it's got to be good. Yeah. Well, how do you determine good and evil? It's got to be a moral law. Because on 9/11, some people said it was bad. People across the ocean, millions said it was good. So you got to have a moral law to decide that. And if there's a moral law, there's got to be a moral lawgiver, but that's who you're trying to disprove. Because if there's no moral lawgiver, there's no moral law. There's no lower law. There's no good. There's no evil. Everything breaks down. There has to be a God. That's why the argument about God, to prove God, is morality. It's the greatest argument there is because everybody's got evil in their life. And you can prove that. And if they deny it, you know they're lying. You got evil in your life. What do you do about it? Ask for forgiveness. You ever did something to somebody and you can't go back and find them? What do you do about that? Why let it go? Sure, that's not good. What do you do with that? Everybody's got guilt. Everybody's messed up. Answering a fool in both places here. He that sendeth a message by the hand of a fool cutteth off the feet and drinketh damage. Wow. That's kind of bad, isn't it? You sending a message by a fool? He cuts off his own feet and drinks violence. Sending a message by somebody you know you ought not to send it by. Well, I said, it's kind of awkward, isn't it? Cutting off your own legs. We said bad for the home team, isn't it? It's going to be bad for the home team. It's just not good. The legs of the lame are not equal. So is a parable in the mouth of fools. This proverb is about fools, people that deny God. Like it says, like the lame are not equal. The legs of a lame man ain't equal, right? So is a parable in the mouth of a fool. A proverb in the mouth of a fool. He don't know what he's talking about. He that bindeth a stone in a sling, as he that bindeth a stone in a sling, so is he that giveth honor to a fool. Like binding bind a stone in a sling. Why would you bind it? But if you bind it, you're going to throw it, but it won't come out. It makes no sense. So it's like a man binding a stone in a sling, giving honor to a fool. Why would you do that? This so-and-so, I love him. I giving honor. I never deny people their honor. Freddie Mercury. For those of you know Freddie Mercury, one of the greatest voices of our time when it comes to men. I grew up with my first one, Crocodile Rock, and I listened to all of Elton John's song. Had a unique voice. He has the lyrics of Bernie Taupin. I knew all those things. But the day came when I was offered the free tickets to go and see him in concert. No, I'm not going to. That would be giving too much honor. I will not be seen at that kind of a concert. It's just, you don't give honor to people like that. He says, that's like giving honor to a fool is like saying he's a fool. They don't believe in God. They don't have a knowledge in their lifestyles. You don't want to promote that. You have to be careful of your own reputation. It's like a sling being put in, a binding a stone in a sling that's going to come back and hit you. It's going to hurt you.
We're going to their birthday parties.
Go ahead, Brother H.
But it's like, and this goes back a lot of years ago when we didn't have much money to go anywhere, so we were able to go out to a decent restaurant. But if they served beer or alcohol in any form, then we were judged because we went there to eat. Well, don't you know that's not okay? Well, we were just hungry. We didn't go and get the alcohol. But that was the mindset back then. It's now. Oh, okay. Well, we can sit at the bar if we want to.
Yeah.
That happened to me. I went up to Raleigh to spend the night, and on my way up there, I told the wife, I said, I don't know Raleigh that good. I'm going to stop here in Aberdeen. I was by myself, and you know how hard it is to get a seat when you're by yourself? So I went in, and I said, I need a seat. It was a Texas steakhouse there, just going in. Sir, we can get a seat right now. We got a seat at the bar. Nah, it wouldn't be bad for the preacher to be sitting at the bar. Somebody going to see me sure as day, right? Somebody going sure as day. They got the video cameras already out. And it would never take a drink or anything, but guess what? The fact of where you're at, you can't deny it.
The other week I went out to lunch with some previous co-workers to the Mexican restaurant in Brady, and I got a pineapple drink, and they brought it in, it looked like a margarita, I said, Lord, I hope the picture don't work. And the people there across from me heard me, and they just laughed.
What you do in those kind of cases, sir, can I get a glass? I got you.
Luckily, it weren't that.
Hey, I listen. I've learned my lesson. But again, it's, of course, it's your reputation. But he's wise here. He says, give it a full. As a thorn goeth up to the hand of a drunkard, so is a parable of the mouthful. As a thorn goeth up into the hand of a drunkard. It's the same thing for a fool. Let's see. Yeah. The great God that formeth all things, both rewarded the fool and rewarded the transgressors. God's over all. And everybody gets what's coming to them. Everybody's going to receive, right? For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive of the things done in his body, according to that what he has done, whether it be good or bad. That's in, of course, for Christians, 2 Corinthians 5 and 10. But also we read about those in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse number 11 and 12. Gold, silver, 13, gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble. But then, of course, those who are lost, Revelation chapter 20, I think it's verse number 11, you talk about they're going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ. They're going to receive all the things under their body, the great white throne judgment. And they're going to be judged according to their works. God will take care of them, right? Go ahead.
Verse 10,
Yeah.
it's completely different.
What is it?
It says, like an archer who wounds at random is he who hires a fool or any passerby. Every completely different.
Like where's what number 10?
Yes, sir.
Passerby.
Now read the archer when in King James it says,
Transgressor.
God.
The great God who formed everything. Give the fool his hire and the transgressor his wages.
NIV says an archer.
Thank you. Read it again, brother, so I can hear it from the NIV.
It says, like an archer who wounds at random is he who hires a fool or any passerby.
And what did you say?
Mine says, the great God that formed all things rewardeth the fool of the rewardeth the fool and rewardeth the transgressors. Now, I'm reading this in David Guzik in his, of course. He has he does a different version. He says, the great God who formed everything gives the fool his hire and the transgressors his wages. New King James does the same thing? I don't know whether that is in you. Maybe there's a footnote that you can read down there. Wow. Okay. Well, let's go to verse 11 next time, okay? We'll go to verse 11 next time.
What it was saying, kind of, he was talking about
Archer.
at random. That's kind of like just wasting you just.
But he's talking about here that, and of course, King James refers to see people that do wrong and get rewarded what's coming to them.
Yeah.
Everybody gets what's coming to them, right? Right? So we'll start in 26 verse 11. Chapter 26 and verse 11. Thank you. Hey, it's good to see you again. Have a blessed evening. Huh?